The Premed Year, session number 323. Hello and welcome to the 3-time Academy Award-nominated podcast, The Premed Years, where we believe that collaboration, not competition, is key to your success. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Gray, and in this podcast, we share with you stories, encouragement, and information that you need to know to help guide you on your path to becoming a physician. And welcome to the Premed Years. Thank you for joining me on this journey to medical school, the journey that you are on right now. Before we get started with today's episode, which is a great interview with a pre-med who is going to medical school soon, I want to let you know that secondaryapps.com is finally live. Now, the secondary essays are a big part of the medical school application process, and I've wanted for several years to get all of the medical school's secondary essays on my website. And with the help of Sam, a student who I hired a couple months ago, we finally have that on our site. Secondaryapps.com will take you there. We have the secondary essays for every school that offers them. We have an easy way for you to tell us that there are new essays for the year. And if you didn't know, most schools will reuse the same essays year after year. Some schools change them, and we have an easy way for you to let us know that those secondaries are updated so we can keep you fully updated as well. We have some more great stuff coming to the secondaryapps.com, including videos and posts all about how to answer the most common types of secondary essays, whether it's diversity questions or obstacle questions or what are you doing in your time off type questions. We're going to have a bunch of information there for you to help you answer your secondary essays as well, not just the essay prompts. Included on those pages is the secondary essay fees and if they do the FAP waiver, as well as mission, vision, and other information that we felt was helpful for you as you answer those questions. If you're listening to this on launch day, which is January 30th, 2018, we have a secondary essay contest going on right now. If you go to my Instagram account, it's instagram.com/medicalschoolhq, or just search for me, Medical School HQ, and look for our contest details in my bio and the post, all about how to enter to win one of two grand prizes, a secondary essay editing package valued at $500. That contest ends on February 1st, 2019 at 12 midnight Eastern Time. So again, if you're listening to this between January 30th, 2019 and February 1st, 2019, go find my Instagram account at Medical School HQ and look for details on how to enter that contest. And thank you to Sam and thank you to every student who has helped me get to this point with these secondary essays. All right, to today's guest, we have Madeleine, a student who always wanted to be a doctor and then didn't want to be a doctor, partly because her advisor said she could never get in with the grades that she got, went the PT route for a little bit, got into PT school, and then realized maybe she was meant to be a doctor after all. We're going to talk about her journey, what she thinks set her apart, that she got 3 interviews right off the bat and multiple acceptances so that she canceled the rest of her secondary essays, which is always a nice feeling. We're going to talk about what she struggled with, how she overcame those struggles, and so much more. Let's go ahead and jump in and say hello to Madeleine. Madeleine, welcome to the Premed Years. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
When did you first realize that you wanted to be a physician?
So this is kind of a complex question because I grew up saying that I wanted to be a doctor just forever from kind of the time that I could talk. I enjoyed watching Untold Stories of the ER and all those weird Discovery Channel TV series when I was a kid. And then I got to college and suddenly didn't think I wanted to be a physician anymore. So I guess I should say my whole life I've kind of wanted to be a physician, but not entirely sure when that started for real.
Let's break that down for somebody who has that same similar feeling and they can't verbalize why they want to do it. what do you think was it that got you interested in those TV shows? I'm assuming your parents like them, and so you watched them as a kid. But
not at all.
Really?
No, I mean, my mom's kind of squeamish. So like, it's not like they said, "Oh no, ew, turn it off," but they weren't watching it, and then I came in. It was the kind of thing where if I had the remote, I was either watching Animal Planet or Discovery Channel, and I thought it was really cool that the science behind it. And I mean, I hate to say that I like science and helping people, but that was kind of what my basis was on, at least initially.
Yeah. What do your parents do?
So I don't know my dad, but my mom is a freelance writer.
Okay. Not healthcare related.
No.
Okay. Very interesting. Because there are those kind of medical writers. Those are kind of cool jobs. And so maybe you were exposed that way. Any close relatives, family members that were in healthcare at all?
I mean, I think I have like a distant aunt removed several times, but other than that, I never was around anybody that worked in healthcare.
Interesting. Very cool. So what do you think it was that had you say, yeah, I want to be a doctor when I grow up, obviously being interested in these TV shows? What do you think it was when you got to college that you were like, yeah, I don't know?
Well, so I never really had any academic problems in high school. I had to study and do stuff, but if I read the book, then I'd make an A, and it wasn't that hard. But then I got to college, and I went to the honors college at University of South Carolina, and it was very intense. And they're used to, kids coming in that are really ambitious and put us all on all these honors courses. And so I took vector calculus. Oh God, what else? Chemistry in the lab for that, biology in the lab for that, and a couple other courses and an exercise science course. And all of that together, like coupled with the fact that I was in college on my own, I just was completely overwhelmed and was, didn't do so hot that semester. And so I thought to myself, like, well, I don't really have like a really tangible idea as to why I want to be a physician. So if I can't even handle my first semester of college, then how the heck am I going to be able to ever handle med school? So I think that's when I started doubting myself, was my freshman year of college.
That's why it's so important. I try to remind students as they're going through this process, whether struggling with their grades or struggling with their MCAT prep, whatever it is, to always lean on their why. Why are you doing this? And picture that. And it's hard for somebody like yourself who didn't really have a solid why. It was just the story that you told yourself, I'm going to be a doctor, like those TV shows. And when you meet your first adversity, you start to crumble a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. I didn't have a really strong reason as to why I wanted to do it. So,
yeah. So where did you pivot to instead of wanting to be a physician?
So, because of timing, I actually started competitive powerlifting my second semester of my freshman year in college, and there were a lot of physical therapists that would train at my gym. And so I thought it was really cool. Like, when you're getting under a lot of heavy weights, things break and things hurt. And they were able to, my training partners were able to make me feel better. And I thought, well, this is really cool. This is biomechanics and exercise science and all the stuff that I like. Let me try to be a physical therapist.
How did you explore that world?
I shadowed them a lot. I was around them very frequently because we'd be training for 2 to 3 hours a night, 2 or 3 days a week. So I'd ask them all kinds of questions, and I went and I think I said I shadowed them a bunch, and explored that, and that seemed like that was a lot, I guess, more attainable in my eyes than medical school for some reason. So that's how I ended up there.
How far along that path did you get?
So I actually took the GRE 3 times, applied to physical therapy schools, and got into one.
3 times for the GRE.
Yeah, I did not study well for that, but I figured it out by the 3rd time, but it was still really expensive.
You finally got there. So You went pretty far down this physical therapy path.
Oh yeah, I put a deposit down and everything. I was very far down that path.
You get accepted to a school. Mm-hmm. When did you realize, like, I don't know if this is what I want to do?
So I wasn't excited when I got into physical therapy school. I was relieved because it was like, okay, well, I have a career. I'm going to have some way to make money, but there was no real passion about it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, that haunted me a little bit. And I was really, I loved the idea of being able to use my hands to help people, to be able to do like soft tissue manipulations and all that other stuff. And I was actually, my best friend's a massage therapist, and he was working on me. It was like a couple days before my college graduation, and I was like, man, I really wish somebody could do, kind of what you're doing and what I love about physical therapy, and also, medicine. And he said, well, there's this thing called a doctor of osteopathic medicine, and it's basically that.
Yeah. And so you looked at that, and what did you do?
I emptied my savings account and signed up for organic chemistry.
So you had graduated at that point?
Yeah, I had graduated.
Wow. Okay. How did you find out the information for like, oh, wow, I want to go to medical school now? How did you find like what those next steps were? Where did you get that information to figure out what you needed to do?
The internet. I think what I did was I went online and I looked and to see what the, like med school prerequisites were, because it's it's a similar process applying to physical therapy school and medical school. So I think I looked and saw I have to take organic chemistry, and that I hadn't fully committed to that at that point in time. I hadn't fully committed to being a physician because like I said, I put down a deposit on physical therapy school in case this didn't work out. I had like a backup plan, so it was kind of like man, I really want to do this. I really like the sounds of this. I'm really not feeling the whole physical therapy thing. So let me try out organic chemistry, see how I do, and go from there.
Well, organic chemistry is nothing like being a physician. What was your threshold for, yeah, I'm going to do this? Was it literally just doing well in organic chemistry?
No, I went. While I was in organic chemistry, I figured out I needed to go. I started listening to your podcast, and I needed to go shadow. So I had a really amazing shadowing experience with a DO who just does neuromuscular medicine. Mm-hmm. And I'd always thought, like, I think this is one of those things where I think in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to be a physician. I just doubted myself so much that I'd convinced myself I didn't. But I went and shadowed this DO and saw what she could do in terms of helping relieve people's pain and just helping them, feel better generally in their life. And that kind of settled it for me. That and I actually talked to my primary care physician about it, and he was really motivational about it.
Was that the first time you had shadowed somebody?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's the biggest thing that I think most students miss, is that you're telling yourself, oh, I always wanted to be one, but that's all theoretical because it's from watching TV, it's from maybe seeing friends whose parents are physicians or your friends going to medical school, but there's nothing tangible for you to lean on until you went and shadowed for the first time, and then you're like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, I really needed that experience to solidify it for me.
Why do you think you never did that earlier?
So part of that had to do with bad advisors. I when I was kind of talking to my advisor, because I was pre-med initially, about how, I really want to do this medical thing, I think. And then she just straight up told me that there's no way you're getting to medical school with the grades you just made that first semester.
So let's talk about that. What you didn't do well in one semester of your undergrad, your first semester of your undergrad. What kind of grades did you get?
So I got a C in the vector calculus. I got a C in biology 101, which I think was the most concerning thing to her. And then I think I did well in all the other classes, but those two big ones were the ones where she was basically like, if you get a C in biology 101, then how the heck are you going to be able to tackle biochemistry and everything else?
Of course, because one class is going to determine the rest of your life.
And it is absurd. It is very absurd, but at the time it made sense to me for some reason.
So you're walking out of your first semester with like a 2.8, 2.9, 3.0, somewhere around there?
I think it was a 3.0.
Okay.
But it was very much it was not anywhere close to a 3.5 or a 4.0.
Yeah. Okay. So you get that initial amazing feedback from your advisor, and you're like, yeah, okay, I guess I shouldn't do anything on the pre-med path. Let's redirect somewhere else.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Awesome. If you could go back to that point in time, what would you tell yourself?
Honestly, nothing, because I think I needed to have this weird roundabout path to get where I am to be the best that I can be and do the best I can be in medical school. I needed this time off to kind of figure everything out myself.
What kind of stuff did you figure out?
Well, I didn't know how to study, and I didn't figure that out actually really until organic chemistry. So that was a big thing for me. That and kind of part of that was just kind of figuring out how to lead a balanced life and not be the kind of person who wouldn't study at all, and then finals week would come, and I would literally not leave the library for a week.
Yeah, that's not sustainable.
No, not at all.
What do you think? It's interesting. You say you didn't know how to study until organic chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
whereas most people have kind of learned how to study, and then organic chemistry breaks that studying. What
Yeah.
do you think worked for you there?
Well, part of it was, again, the motivation, having shadowed that position and having this concrete, tangible thing where I was like, okay, well, this is really not fun, but I should stay in the library and not go out with my friends tonight because I really do want to be like that physician. So having that goal, having the motivation to keep studying, that was a big thing. That and I found a group of other little non-traditional-ish students to study with, and I figured out that I study really well in a group setting. So those two are the big things, probably. How
did you find a group of collaborative students that were willing to be nice to you?
Probably sheer dumb luck, but I was in a room with a bunch of people who were not that much younger than me, 19, 20, but I was 22, 23 and felt just older and out of place, which I know that's ridiculous, but I didn't really feel like there was anybody to talk to in the class, and I knew that I needed to do that, especially because it was the summer class, so it wouldn't move really, really fast, and I wanted to kind of try to form that group. So I just saw somebody sitting next to me that I thought I went to middle school with or elementary school, and we weren't good friends, but I thought I'd seen him at some point, so I started talking to him, and we just kind of bonded and went from there.
Yeah. And while you were going through your undergrad, you were busy with work as well.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Talk about why did you work and how did you make it work to work while you're also in school?
So I had to work. Well, I didn't have to work, but I wanted to graduate without any student loans. So I was lucky enough to get some scholarship money, but I still needed stuff to live on. So I figured out what jobs would be flexible enough for me to be able to study and make my own schedule and go to classes and things like that. And I usually worked 2 jobs. I think at one point I had like 4 where I wouldn't work a whole lot of hours in each one, but I was able to kind of piece together enough hours between all of them to where I could make it work.
And did you graduate without any debt?
I did, and then I got some great debt paying for biochemistry later on. But in the long term, it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wish more students could figure out how to do that. And obviously, for you, it didn't work out perfectly because your grades weren't the best, and so it kind of forced you to overcome some hurdles because of your GPA. Do you think the working had a bigger impact on your grades, or was it just a lack of just understanding, a lack of clarity with your goals as well?
So I think the clarity with the goals was a big part of that. But I think trying to balance everything, and I balanced everything relatively well, but just kind of learning how to do all of that definitely took a toll on my grades, because I was a personal trainer, so I'd be trying to work with client schedules and, also go to class, and then I'd forget to schedule any time to study. And then lo and behold, the exam would be there and I haven't done anything for it. So that did indeed play a part in it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the MCAT, the glorious MCAT.
Yes.
The wonderful, glorious MCAT. How did you step into that world, MCAT world, with your preparation? What did you use? How did you fare with that?
So I took the MCAT twice. The first time I took it, it was because I was kind of debating about doing a special master's program. And I knew that they would have to, they required that for, an entry for entry. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't expect to do super well in the MCAT. I took that, I think it was like late summer, early fall of, right after organic chemistry. So I still hadn't taken biochemistry yet. So I knew I wasn't going to do great.
Were you rushing the MCAT because of SMP applications?
Absolutely. Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, I knew that I wasn't ready to take it, but I was still kind of telling myself that, well, I just need to take it so that I can do an S&P.
Okay. Okay. And so you rushed it and didn't go very well?
No, I don't remember. It was like I got like a 490 something. So it wasn't ridiculously bad, but it was nowhere near what I needed.
Okay. All right. So um, did you end up doing an SMP?
No. And I'm so glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Your podcasts were a huge part of that.
Let's talk about that thought process, because so many students, I get so many questions that are all around, do I need to do a master's program? Do I need to do a postbac? Do I need to do an SMP? What was the thought process for you of doing an SMP or not?
So I think pre-meds just kind of by default are all perfectionists. So we all think if there's like even one blemish, or like me, I think there were about 10 different C's that I got through in my undergrad career. You know, if we feel like we have to correct that and make it perfect, because med school is not going to let us in unless we're perfect. And so I thought I needed to do an SMP or just like redo the biology and the other stuff that I did in gut season before I even applied. And then you said, let the med schools tell you no before you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the costs, and it was going to be something absurd, like 20 grand for just tuition. And then of course I couldn't work. So you got to add that in too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking like, all right, well, it's going to be expensive to apply to med school, but
not that expensive.
Exactly. But it's not 20 grand. So why don't I go ahead and apply? Let them tell me no, let them tell me what I need to be stronger on, and then go from there. Because I mean, even if they wanted me to retake biology, I could just retake that one class, and that would still be significantly less than a whole program.
Yeah. So what was your GPA hovering around when you were going through this decision?
It was a 3. It was like a 3.3, I think.
Okay.
Something like that.
For cumulative and science?
For cumulative, the science was definitely lower. I don't remember exactly what my science was, but it was either like a 2.9 or a 3.0.
For your science?
Yeah.
Okay. And at that point, you were like, I'm going to apply and see what happens.
Exactly.
Okay. And I think a lot of students would be like, oh, that's crazy. Why would you do that? You can't get in with those grades. And you said you didn't do well on the MCAT the first time. What did you change to do better on the MCAT the second time? I'm assuming you did better.
I did. Yeah, I did significantly better.
Okay.
So I never really carved out specific times to study for it. I'm a very I like routines. I like rituals. So my same friend that I studied with on organic, he was going through the application process at the same time as me, which that was amazing to have somebody to help, edit personal statements and stuff like that with. But so he and I would meet and study every Monday and Wednesday for like 4 or 5 hours, and then study on the weekends too. So I had somebody kind of keeping me accountable, and somebody to study with and be like, I don't know what this is talking about. Do you understand it? And work through it together. That, and I did the Next Step course, which was really, really great. Especially, whenever there'd be a problem that I wouldn't understand at all, I could get the tutor to explain it to me, and having the access to the tests. That's the other thing I did that made a big difference, was just kind of ramming tests over and over so that I would get the mental stamina to do it, to be able to tackle the length of that test.
Yeah. So you take your tests, you're doing Next Step, you have a study group, and you walked into the test and finally got the score you were potentially hoping for? Yes,
on the dot.
Good. And what were you shooting for?
So I was shooting for a 505, because I knew that was realistic for me. If I said I'm going to do like a 515 or something, that I was going to be sitting around waiting forever for my practice exams to get that high.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew at that point I'd done really, really well on organic 1 and 2 and biochem and genetics. So I knew that I had an upward trend there. So I was already kind of proving to med schools like, hey, I figured out how to study and I can do well academically in med school. So I just wanted to get kind of, I wouldn't say bare minimum, but kind of like a solid enough score to where I knew that wasn't they weren't going to look twice at my MCAT score in a negative or a positive way.
Yeah. how did you come up with that number? Because a lot of students will look at their GPA and they'll talk to somebody and be like, oh, with that GPA, you're going to need a such and such number. Did you ever go through that process, or did you was like, what's realistic for me?
So funny enough, I went back to the not the same advisor, but I went back to a different advisor in like the office of professional advising or something. And she gave me a number I don't remember what the number was. At that point I was just like, all right, well, I've already done this before and I didn't listen to them that first time, so let me not listen to this person anyway.
Yeah. And what did they tell you?
I think it was like a 513 or something. It was something that seemed extremely arbitrary. And she showed me a graph that had a bell curve on it, and I threw the graph away almost immediately. So
yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but
that's funny. Yeah. The advisors, they try to do their best, but no, it's not always the best advice.
It was totally well-intentioned. Yeah. She was very sweet and very well-intentioned, and I was not going to listen to her.
Yeah. Yeah. So you applied to DO schools. Obviously, that was something that interested you. Did you apply to MD schools at all?
I didn't, because I am I want to be able to use OMT in my practice. I don't intend to do solely neuromuscular medicine, but I want that to be in my toolbox as a physician. So I only wanted to go to DO schools.
Okay, interesting. So you submitted your applications. What was the hardest thing about the application process for you?
Corralling my letters of rec, the writers for my letters of rec, and getting them. It's like herding cats.
Yeah.
And I'd heard you say things like, make sure that you've got them solid before you hit the submit button, or your application could be delayed like 6 months because someone went on vacation and forgot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And did you have any issues where letters of recs were coming in late?
Yes. So the physicians that wrote my letters of rec were great and were very on time. But my organic chemistry professor, he was about to retire. Like that was his last semester teaching was that spring semester. So I went to his office every day for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Went in person and said, hey, I brought you coffee. How we doing a letter of recommendation? Can I help with anything? And I went there almost every single day for 2 weeks.
Did you submit your letters through Interfolio or directly to Acomas?
I did Interfolio.
Yeah. Okay. And how was that process for you, the Interfolio process?
Oh, it was great. I think everybody should do that. I mean, because they're stored there. So if I need them for any reason, I have them. And not only that, somebody spelled my name wrong because it already has too many vowels and it's hard to spell as it is. Yeah. And Interfolio checked that, picked up on it, and we were able to get that corrected before I sent anything off. Yeah,
that's something I don't talk enough about with Interfolio, is that it's not just a repository where you can have your letter sent. They check spelling of names, and is the letter of recommendation on letterhead? Is it signed? Is there a date? All these things that are required, they'll check that and let you know so that you're not scrambling at the last minute.
And even better than that, I'd forgotten about this. One of the schools at Alabama, the College of Osteopathic Medicine, they're very strict on their letters, and they want the professors to say like the exact, I don't think it was a section number, but they want to know the exact class they taught you in and what their title is if they're like a clinical associate professor. They have all these guidelines they wanted, and I actually had to get that letter writer to resend it, and I called Interfolio and said, hey, these are the things I need in that letter. Is that in there? And they were able to read it and tell me yes.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah, because again, for you listening, you are not supposed to be looking at your letters of recommendations.
No.
I know some letter writers will just send it to you as well, but you're not supposed to look at them.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how many schools did you end up applying to through Acomas?
So I applied to 10, and I filled out secondaries for 3 and was accepted before all of the other ones got back to me with secondaries.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you think that happened?
So I submitted later than I thought that I wanted to. I submitted like mid-June.
Okay.
So, the early thing is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. And then I made sure that I was different and that everything that I wanted them to know about me stood out. And I did that. I'm going to plug you here by using you to edit my extracurriculars and my personal statement and making sure that was immaculate and that was, that was what I needed it to be, and just making sure I presented the best possible package for myself that I could. And by the time I hit submit, I knew that there was not anything in there that I I could make better.
And by making yourself different, you didn't say, look at all these hours of shadowing I have, look at all this clinical experience I have, I'm going to be an amazing physician. How did you stand out? How did you make yourself different?
So a lot of that was unintentional because I wasn't planning on going to med school. So it's not like I did all this weird innocuous shadowing that didn't matter. Everything that I did, I love to do. So I'm a competitive powerlifter. I have a couple world records there. I know that stood out. I volunteered for an animal shelter training dogs, and that was something that I really liked to do. So everything on there that I checked all the boxes, so to speak, with volunteering and all that, but there was nothing on my application that I didn't love and that I couldn't talk with and be passionate about. And that I think that came across really, which is kind of the raw passion I have.
So in other words, you were just you. Exactly.
I was just me. There was me presented in the best way that I could be presented.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, is tell your story. And I think that's where, with my personal statement book, with the course, with everything, I try to get students to just tell their story and not try to sell why they think they're going to be amazing physicians.
Yeah, exactly.
When it came to your interview, you went on one interview or more than one?
Three
interviews. So you submitted 3 secondaries. You got 3 interviews with a 505 and roughly a 3 low 3 science GPA. You, during your interviews, what did you guys talk about?
So I actually did the beta group for your interview course, which was also very helpful. In fact, I was well prepared for you to open this by saying, "Tell me about yourself," but I'm glad you didn't. So we talked about the exact same things you talked about in that interview prep course, just kind of generally the whole tell me about yourself question. And then, why DO is a big one, which was not hard for me to answer. And then, why be a physician and why this school? And I was able to, no one asked, well, except for one, no one asked me anything other than those questions because we had so much to talk about with those questions.
Yeah. Did you get into talking about your powerlifting and all that fun stuff?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Because that was, again, just something that I'm very passionate about and that really set me apart and was a big part of me wanting to be a physician and kind of my journey there.
Yeah, and it's different. That's why I say different. Yeah. Different is better than better. You're not there to show them up and say, look at my 4.0, look at my 525, look at this, look at that. It's, look, I did this fun thing on the side because it was something I was super passionate about. And they're like, oh, yes, thank God, something interesting that isn't like your all of your shadowing hours that are going to make you an amazing physician that we have to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that obviously resonated with the interviewers. You got your first acceptance. And why did you choose to sit on that first acceptance and then cancel everything else?
So I didn't. So I got accepted. The first interview that I had and the first acceptance I had was to the Alabama College of Osteopathic Medicine. And that was my number one school.
Okay.
So once I'd gotten that, I was so I had all my interviews done within a span of 3 weeks.
Okay.
So I didn't actually know about getting into Alabama until after I'd already finished my second interview.
Okay.
And then by the time I got to my third interview, I almost didn't go to it. But then the third interview ended up being where I'm actually going. So I'm really glad I went.
Okay. But you stopped filling out other secondaries.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And why did you stop doing that?
Because I figured I might as well save my money, and because the 3 schools that I got invited to interview at were my 3 top schools, and it was my top 3 choices. So at that point, I didn't really want to go anywhere else.
Okay, so you had at least one acceptance. It was to one of your top schools, and you're like, okay, I don't need to do these other ones.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So when you got multiple acceptances, what was it? You said Alabama was your top choice. Why was this third school now all of a sudden your top choice?
So I'm going to Lincoln Memorial University, DeBusk College of Osteopathic Medicine, which is the longest name ever. Yes. But the reason why that won out over Alabama was because it's a big school, but they have they've made efforts to make sure that also kind of retains a small environment. So I was getting all of the perks of the small school, which Alabama is a small school. But I was also getting all of the resources of having a large school. So they have like 3 or 4 different mental health professionals on there that are their job is to just be therapists to the students. They have all kinds of research opportunities. They have everything that a big school has, and they also have done things to foster a small school environment. So that was my big reason.
And were their weightlifting facilities better?
No, actually.
You'll have to work on that then.
I will, yes. That's the plan.
Very cool. So you got into medical school, you put down your deposit, and what do you do in the meantime before you start school? Are you trying to figure out what to do to best prepare? Are you just relaxing? What are you doing now?
So I'm working as a medical scribe, which I did mention that before. When I decided that I wanted to apply to medical school, one of the things that I did after I was done taking all my classes was sign up to be or apply to be a medical scribe. So I'm still working as a medical scribe, and I'm doing everything I can to kind of just get exposed to as much as possible. So I've gotten a couple of the physicians to agree to let me watch some of their procedures, and I'm kind of trying to do everything I can to prepare for medical school without preparing for it directly. Like I'm not pre-studying or anything like that, because I know me, and I will get way too intense with it and be burnt out before med school starts.
Don't want to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. If you could go back right now and tell your day one undergrad self some words of wisdom, what would you tell her?
The biggest thing would be let the medical schools tell you no. Don't let anyone else tell you no. I mean, it's expensive, but it's not as expensive as doing a special master's program or going to physical therapy school when you don't want to go to physical therapy school. All
right, so there you have it again. That was Madeleine going to medical school here August 2019 after a journey that she potentially thought she couldn't get into medical school, partly because somebody told her that she couldn't. And a lot of you have this voice in your head that's telling you you can't do this. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You don't have the grades. And a lot of those voices have come from external sources, whether it's an advisor, a family member, a friend, wherever that may be. So as you are doubting yourself, remember that doubt typically came from somewhere else. Don't lean on that and use that as a crutch moving forward. Push through and realize that the goals you want are out there and within reach, just like Madeleine did. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the Premed Years.